Let's get ready to rumble!
Right now, let's kick off with the show proper. Hello and welcome to Netflix versus Cinema, the show that is back to a fabulous foursome. That sounds a bit Dutch. after a break of holidays and stuff and nothing being in cinemas and all that, four of us are back here. My name is Tosin and I am the host, based up in the middle of the United Kingdom, somewhere in the Midlands, somewhere near Birmingham. Joining me as always from the Isle of Wight is Sharon Bollen.
Hello.
Joining me from, it could be one of two places. It's either the Isle of Wight or Bournemouth. I'm going to go 50-50 and say this week it's the Isle of Wight.
No, it's Bournemouth.
Oh, rubbish! Yes. It's Shaun Harris. Shaun Harris joining us from Bournemouth.
Hey, hi.
And joining us all the way from the Big Smoke, from London, it is our London correspondent, back from having a lovely tan in a pool somewhere with sun. Well, quite frankly, she could have stayed at home. It is Holly. Holly Nestle.
Hi.
Yes, you could have stayed at home, but I'm guessing that there would have been fewer swimming pools to lounge about in. Right, now this week, we have another one of those weeks. We spoke about how last week Thor Love and Thunder was released in cinemas, and therefore there's just a dearth of stuff in cinemas. Which means that we couldn't do what we usually do, which is we go to the cinema, we see usually about 3 films a week between the 4 of us. We see 3 films and we rate them out of 5, and we see at least 3 things at home on Netflix and we rate them out of 5 and we say, where has our money been better spent this week? Last week, Shaun and I decided to just go for a good old streaming binge because we couldn't talk about anything in cinema. So we went for a good old streaming binge. And today we have 2 things in the cinema because that's all we could find, and 4 things at home. So we will still have 6 things to review for you. It also means that we can post something every day of the week. We can post a review every day of the week on YouTube and Facebook. So the big cheese in town this week is Thor, Love and Thunder. Let us kick off with that. Now, Holly, you are the only one who has not seen this. So feel free to ask questions as we go along with this. I'm going to try and give us a little brief synopsis of what Thor, Love and Thunder is all about. Now, if you have not been following the MCU for its last 20-something films, then quite frankly, I don't know how to explain this film to you. But the last time we saw Thor, which would have been at the end of Avengers Endgame, Thor had decided to go off with the Guardians of the Galaxy and go around the world and not be king of Asgard. And this film picks up with him and picks up with what Thor did. Thor has gotten back into shape. He's with the Guardians of the Galaxy, but he's trying to do some sort of introspection and feel what he's like, figure out who he is. And the film kicks off with Thor in sort of like adventurer mode with the Guardians of the Galaxy. They have some adventures and all that kind of stuff. Then something happens, which means that Thor has to leave the Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't think it's that much of a spoiler to say that that Thor leaves. And essentially, there is this character called Gore the God Butcher, and he has decided that gods are essentially gods are liars, gods are a waste of time, and he has pledged that all gods should die. So because of that, Thor gets a distress signal and decides, I need to go help out my fellow gods and figure out what's going on. That's the main thrust of this film. And then other things happen. We have Natalie Portman shows up again. And this time Natalie Portman shows up as Thor, or as another Thor. So she actually has Thor's powers. She's working with Mjolnir, like Thor's hammer, which the last time we saw was in a whole bunch of pieces. And there's all that stuff going on, and it goes into, and I think plot-wise, I think that's about it. Is there anything else that we want to add plot-wise, Shaun or Sharon? Because
I don't think so. I mean, if people have watched the previous Thor, they'd probably...
Yeah. It's a superhero movie, so that's the basic thing. That's the excuse for the action. Someone's killing all the gods. Thor's trying to figure out who it is and is trying to save all the gods. End of story.
I must say one thing. I think that's a great name for a destroyer of gods, isn't it? The God Butcher.
The God Butcher. Yeah.
You know.
I think, it's not much to say. It's not. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that Gore is probably one of my favorite characters in this film. So, but let's kick off. So, Sharon, what did you think of Thor: Love and Thunder?
I thought it was a little bit patchy. I thought there was elements that were really good, and some of the humour for me didn't quite deliver. Mm-hmm. I found it was a little bit broad in places. I like that sort of irreverent humour that Taika Waititi brings to it, but some of these I thought were a little bit broad for me. But I liked it on the whole. That you see Thor, I mean, he's the god of thunder, but I think as it becomes obvious in this, he isn't like the brightest god in the pantheon. And so sometimes his like sort of innocence and his a completely obliviousness to the world around him, there's a humour in that. So some of the broader humour is sometimes I felt landed a bit flat. But no, there are elements I did like. I did like this sort of the whole pantheon of the gods thing, where you have all the different cultures where they're all in this arena.
Yeah, when they had like omnipotent city.
Yes, omnipotent city where all the gods go for their like annual orgy and their and it's that you see how they're there's a whole sort of pantheon of them.
Yes.
And they're just sort of the different elements. I thought it was so there's lots of things I liked, but for me sometimes it wasn't always cohesive. But I think on the whole I quite like the idea of that Thor was in one place at the beginning. He went through this experience, and then he sort of they didn't like reset the clock at the end. He has moved on to like the next phase of his life. So that's the one thing I like about the Marvel films, is that it isn't like a reset the clock after every film, because with some franchises they've been through this hideous ordeal and everything's happened to them, and then at the end of the film they're actually very much the same as they were at the beginning. There is no sort of arc or progression or consequences. So I thought
it's a show up in 2 years. Oh, we'll do the whole thing all over again.
Yeah. And so I like that. So I thought on the whole it was a bit patchy, but on the whole it was an enjoyable film.
Okay, Shaun, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I probably echo some of Sharon's stuff there. I mean, I did to me, Chris Hemsworth plays it so convincingly, like the scene with the Guardians, when he sort of he's got that look, like, to me, it's almost like he portrays it, and like with the bits with the hammer and the thunder thing, whatever, and the axe and the hammer, and he convinces me that he has, which I think is quite hard to do, he does feel like that. So I like that bit. I thought like we said, what was it called again, the place where all the gods meet?
Omnipotent City.
Omnipotent City. And I think like the Greek gods were played, I did like the idea that he played like or was trying to, maybe not particularly successful, but like some sort of Greek person. Do you know?
Oh,
do you know,
okay. Oh,
you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Like, because Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe shows up as Zeus.
The Greek people that I've met are very similar to that, so I thought that was quite.
Russell Crowe shows up as Zeus. Okay, now the funny thing is that when Russell Crowe shows up, right, his accent to begin with, I was thinking this accent might be a hate crime. This accent might be. It might be a. I think the longer the scene goes on, the less caricaturist it feels, and the more it feels like he's actually playing a character, and you're like, okay. But at the beginning, like the first couple of lines, you're like, oh no, oh my god, no. Oh my God.
Where's the wine, and where's Bacchus and all those? It was. But I agree with. I mean, there were some laugh out loud moments. I must be honest. There was a few laugh out loud moments, and it didn't take itself too seriously. But I do agree with Sharon in the respect that there were a few patchy moments. Is exactly right. So, but on the whole, I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite funny, as I say. That the laugh out moments kept me going a while. I'm not so sure about some of the gods at the beginning and the almost like Fantasia, flowers and things and all that.
Oh yeah.
One of the close opening scenes, and I thought the ending was like, again, we come to this thing where people go through this whole tribulation of they got something really, really solid in their mind, and then it's a bit like Doctor Strange, it was like the ending was a bit like the ending of Doctor Strange. Multiverse of Madness.
Now you see, that's going to play a part in what I think. So after I saw this film, I went on Facebook and I just sort of put like the plotting of Marvel movies is getting messier. I think lazier. No, I use the word lazier. The plotting of Marvel movies is getting lazier, and I think that I personally think that at the moment Marvel might be making too many things, because I feel like there's so many things that they're doing and they're spread so thinly that I don't think that the same amount of care is being spent on each one of these things. So there's these little, like you talk about it being patchy. There's these little bits where you're like, hang on a second, what the? And there's so many bits in this film where I felt like, okay, this makes no sense, but it gives us an excuse to go to the next scene. And something that they do in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness that they also do in this film, and I think it's an increasing thing that only really saw in DC movies before, is beginning to creep into Marvel movies, which saddens me as a Marvel fan, is that there's this whole thing of, oh, we must get this thing. It's really important that we get this thing. We will spend 30 minutes of a 2-hour film striving to get this thing. Okay, we've got this thing now. Yes, we've got it. Oh, it turns out we don't need this thing. And and they do that in this film. They do it in Doctor Strange, and I'm like, that is just a messy plot thing, and it's just an excuse for scenes to happen, but it doesn't really have a theme behind it. As I said, this film, the first scene of this film is actually quite dark, and I'm not sure whether it's just because I'm not sure whether it's just because I'm now a dad, but it has to do with a dad trying to sort of like, protect his daughter. It's dark. It's a dark place to start the film in, and it's part of the reason why it makes for me Gore the God Butcher, Christian Bale's character, makes him probably one of my favorite characters in the film, because I just thought this guy's motivations make sense. His motivations make sense. What he wants to do makes sense and all that. And I feel like you could have had a little bit more with him in it, and he could have become like top tier Marvel bad guy, like sort of Baron Zemo in Captain America, Winter Soldier, Civil War, where you could see, I can understand why this guy is doing this thing, and you could see that, and that guy stands out as one of it. But it tells you something about this film that I kind of forgot it was in the cinemas. Like previous Marvel movies, I've been like, I've got to go watch this thing. I've got to go, before people give me any spoilers, I've got to go see this thing. And I actually forgot that this was in cinemas. I forgot about avoiding spoilers. And then all of a sudden I was like on YouTube and they were like, spoiler review for Thor: Love and Thunder. I was like, oh yeah, I should go see that. which makes me think that Marvel is losing its touch a little bit. And I feel like a little bit of that has to do with them spreading themselves too thin. But having said, sorry, Sharon.
No, I would agree with that, because I haven't been able to keep up with all of the series on Disney Plus, because they seem to be like boom, 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 boom. There's one after another, and I barely get through one before there's another one, and now I'm about 4 behind. And then once you're that far behind, you're thinking, do I really have to go back and watch, all of Loki, all of What If, all of
Moon Knight,
the Hawkeye one, and Moon Knight, and I there's probably more that I've missed out on, because if they're just too many. Well, it's not like one film. There's like 8 episodes or something, and I'm thinking I can't devote that much time to just watching nothing but Marvel.
Well, I think that's what they're all trying to do now. All the different streaming platforms are trying to make it so that you watch nothing but them by sucking you into stuff. But so I mean, I agree with a lot of what you guys said about it being patchy, and it's Taika Waititi. And the thing is with him, there's sometimes when when you're watching a film and you can feel that people are improvising, and there's a lot of like scenes where you're just improvising, and I think there is obviously that in his thing, but in his style. But after a while, it wears a bit thin, and there's scenes where you're thinking, as you said, it isn't quite landing, and you're sort of playing around, and you're doing this because you think it's funny, not because it makes sense for an overall story. Having said that, I think for one of the problems I've always had with Thor, right from the first Thor movie, is that the relationship with Jane Foster, that didn't make any sense.
No.
It made it was very hard to sort of get this idea of heft, of emotion or anything like that with Thor, especially when we went to Ragnarok, and Ragnarok was just kind of like laugh, 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 laugh. And like as you said, Sharon, like, what's off a duck's back? Oh, my father's died, no biggie. My brother's died, no biggie. My mother's died, no biggie. And in this one, they bring it back to quite an emotional place where finally the Thor and Jane Foster relationship lands, and the Thor and Jane Foster relationship makes sense. And I think I actually really like the way they went about the relationship in this. And there's a storyline from the comic that they brought in as to how Jane Foster becomes Thor that I did not think they were going to do in the film. But in the first scene that you see Natalie Portman in, I'm like, oh my God, they're going there. So it's a bit more grown up. It's definitely more grown up than Ragnarok. And as a lot of people rave about Ragnarok, I don't rave as much about Ragnarok as most people do. And I actually think that this is more grown up than Ragnarok. There's elements of this I definitely prefer to Ragnarok, but I do think it's patchy. I do think that the MCU plotting is getting lazy. And I hope that they rescue it, because if not, it's going to be a sad thing and a sad day at my house. But all in all, I think I would give this a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I think in some ways I'm not completely sold on the chemistry between Thor and Jane. To me, the relationship does lack that. It's not Captain America and
and Agent Carter, Peggy Carter.
Yeah, it's there, that chemistry sort of like just fizzed, isn't it? Whereas this, I just don't feel that chemistry there. So I would
Peter
give
Parker
it,
and MJ.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I maybe laughing in many places, but not quite gelling for me. So I would give it a 3 out of 5.
For me, I'm gonna give it a 3 as well. As I say, I thought the ending was particularly. I mean, I know it wasn't supposed to be a serious film all there, but the ending again was a big let off. It was a let off, and I agree with you. I'm getting fed up with that. It's almost like, oh well, how can we end this? Oh, well, let's have some stupid. People do loads and loads of tribulations, and then they're like, it's an easy thing to. Oh well, okay. I suddenly change track and be someone totally different. After going through all that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, in the final shot of the film, they explain the title of the film, and that made no sense to me.
No, but I knew. You know what? I knew the after credit scene, what was going to be. I knew it. I thought that straight away. I thought, I know what there's going to be. The after credit scene is going to be. I knew it, and I nailed it. I did get that.
The first one, the second one, the one right at the end. The what?
No, the first one.
The first one. All right. Okay. Cool. Good stuff. Although it has made an interesting addition. Somebody who you would not expect to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is now going to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's an interesting casting.
Yeah, we won't say no.
Okay, so actor, not character. Character to be expected, actor not.
Yes. I think Marvel have gone a bit left field and picked somebody that you would not expect to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is in one of the end credits things, and I will leave it at that. So
I look forward to that.
Yeah, 3 stars for Thor: Love and Thunder. It's fun, but could have been better. But Shaun and Sharon, we can have a discussion at some point and talk about whether you feel that the final shot with the love, where Love and Thunder is explained, and we could. I thought the way they did it, I'm like, no. In that case, the next film should have been called Love and Thunder, not this film. But
I'll try and see it. I'll try to watch it next week.
Yeah. All right. But now we go on to streaming platforms. The first streaming thing of 4 this week, and that is Aftermath. Now, this is a film. I guess we can just about call it a film and I'd like to point out here before Holly goes off that we did not allocate this film for Holly to see. Holly decided to see this of her own accord so she could have something to talk about on the podcast. So we didn't say, Holly, that would be a good film to see. But judging by what she wrote to us on the WhatsApp group, it was not that nice an experience. Would you say that, Holly?
That is correct.
Okay, so if you can be bothered to relive it, tell us what this film's about.
So, it was made in 2021. It stars Ashley Greene, whom I only know of from Twilight prior to this. After seeing this, I actually went and watched Twilight again to make myself feel better, which gives you a real understanding. And Shaun Ashmore, who I recognise but couldn't identify and have checked, is Iceman in...
he's one of the X-Men. Yeah.
And Lamplighter in The Boys.
Yes, he also has a twin brother, Aaron Ashmore, that you could not tell apart from him.
That could add to some of my vast confusion. I've also discovered that there are on IMDb 7 films called Aftermath, so it's not a niche title. This one begins with Shaun Ashmore working in clearing up a house after some sort of murder. He appears to be in some sort of house cleaning crew thing where they go and make things better. Something it's slightly mystifying, doesn't entirely make sense. It then becomes apparent that he is married to Ashley Greene, who is a budding fashion designer, and that's all very lovely, but their relationship is clearly somewhat strained. I know who would have thought. It turns out that she had an affair, and he's struggling to get over it, and they're seeing a marriage therapist, and it's all very, very exciting. And suddenly, and the marriage therapist says, maybe you need to, maybe you need like a change of scene. And so, for reasons I don't entirely understand, Shaun Ashmore asks the sister of the deceased owner of the house he's just been cleaning out if they could buy it at a knockdown price. I don't know where anybody's logic would have been to get there, but that's what he did. And Ashley Greene says, oh, no, this all seems dreadful. No, we can't be buying the houses where people have been murdered. That's awful. And then with some sort of, throwing arms in the air, it turns out his brother had killed himself, and that's why she'd gone off and had an affair, because he wasn't present in the marriage and he'd quit college. So she says she'll do this on the basis that he will go back to college as well. And so suddenly they're buying this very, very fancy house where there's been a murder-suicide.
Okay, at the moment, the phrase "pick a story" comes to mind.
Yes, it does. Yes, yeah, it's completely illogical. So they buy at a discounted rate this very, very fancy, very digitally controlled house, which somehow very likely gets woven into the story, but not in a logical fashion. The house was designed by the dead woman. It's really this incoherent. And things start to happen, and temperature sensors change, and something happens to the dog, and the
haunted electric house. Ta-da!
Hello, the house is electric, and things are happening, and what's going on? It's all very suspect. Bad things seem to be happening. Is she losing her mind? Why does nobody believe her? Why is it that somebody show up at the door responding to a white supremacist ad? So many questions, many of which are never entirely answered. You get to the end of the film, there is a twist. Unsurprisingly, it's not the twist I expected. The other twist is also not the twist I'd expected, but that's because they're really stupid. Extremely, extremely stupid twists. There's no point to them. You get to the end, I don't understand how you got to this. I don't see that there's any logic that led to this outcome. I have massively wasted my time, but it was more fun than doing the work I should probably be doing at the same time.
So, I somewhat dread to ask, how many stars would you give it?
If I could give it less than 1, I would do so. And this is even, knowing my periodic desire to give high star ratings to things that I find joyous, albeit bad. This is neither joyous nor good. It's not the worst acting I've ever seen, but it is.
It is close.
Don't do it. Feel grateful that it's now something you can officially put on your I must never ever watch this list.
All right, cool. So that is 1 star. 1 star for Aftermath. And I have to say, when you shared in a WhatsApp group, you shared the sort of IMDb listing, and the thumbnail for this film came up. And immediately I was kind of like, that thumbnail tells you everything you need to know about this film. It looked like, because that thumbnail, it looked like 11 p.m. on Channel 5 on a weekday kind of thing, kind of vibe. Those sort of films where you're like, who keeps making these things? Why does Channel 5 keep buying these things?
At one time, it was straight to DVD.
Yes.
Or straight to video.
Yes.
And you might have come across it on a Friday night when you're clicking through the video boxes to find something to watch. And I think we used to call them Medusa films, because there was a very cheap studio that made a certain type of film. And then you'd buy a film because it looked promising, and as soon as you saw the Medusa thing, we'd go, oh no,
we've been had.
We've been fooled by the box. And you knew it was going to be complete tat.
For some reason, I was having my head there having been a Medusa thing to do with this, even though it's clearly unrelated. I have some sort of vague recollection of the opening credit things having had a sort of Grecian.
Okay, cool.
No, Medusa lives.
Well, thankfully, but Sharon, thankfully, the thing is that now that it is all streaming, and you don't actually have to go down to somewhere and spend your money to rent a video thing and then walk all the way back home. You can watch the first 10 seconds, know it, and then go, nope, not for me, and leg it.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
But sometimes if you have to have a film to review, you just think, I've got to review something this week. I'm gonna sit here for the hour and a half. I'm gonna do this for my craft.
Okay, so I was thinking, because we didn't have that much in cinema, I was thinking that Netflix might win. But with that one to Aftermath, cinema might have a chance this week. Cinema might just have a chance. But going back to cinema, we now go to the other film that we saw this week, or shall I say Shaun saw this week, because Shaun is the finder out of obscure tiny titles, usually British, that they seem to be trying to bury at the cinema. And this is Brian and Charles. So Shaun, tell me what this is about.
Okay, Brian and Charles. This is a British movie. It takes place in Wales. It's a Welsh village, and you've got this chap. He's really unassuming. He's, he's very shy, but he's an inventor, and he invents these ridiculous things. And then one day he decides. It's funny you should say, like Ricky Gervais earlier on. It's a bit that way. It's a bit sort of officey type.
Yeah.
Type. But so
I know the creator has worked with Ricky Gervais. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he decides he's going to create this robot out of a washing machine. Well, he goes to a fly tip and then he finds his head. Finds a head like you see the one in the background, or finds the head of this mannequin and decides that he's going to make a robot out of a washing machine and a few other electrical bits. And of course, it doesn't work. He switches it on, don't work. He goes to the village. There's this girl that sort of is really shy as well, but they really like each other, but they can't. They pass each other and have an awkward conversation in the street. Anyway. Storm starts. It's got electrical, and he comes back to his house and there's these lights going like, and it's like he's like, oh no! And he goes in there and the robot's gone. He's going, oh no, where is he? And he comes back and the robot's in the cabbage patch. Anyway, cut a long story short, he takes them.
Does anybody at one point in time during this storm go, "It's a lie"?
Not at all. But it is a bit that way. And anyway, so he takes him indoors. He falls asleep and he wakes up and the robot's got, you can't really see it there with the glasses, but it's got like a blinking eye. He says, can you turn your bright blue light out? He goes, no, I cannot do. And he's read the dictionary. So this robot becomes sort of self-aware.
Yeah.
Through going through the dictionary. And it's great. Some of the things he says, cabbage, but he loves cabbages. Cabbages are the thing. But so it's just, there's this cabbage theme that runs all the way through the movie. But obviously he doesn't want him to go into the village or anything, so he tries to keep him under. And the robot gradually becomes a bit like a stroppy child, dead. And there's this horrible family in the village which are real bullies, and so a really nasty, horrible family that you find in a village, and they decide they sort of see the robot, take it away, and they're going to chuck it on a bonfire and anyway all this. So it is. So that's basically the story. It's a friendship story, really, because they become really, really good friends, and he sort of becomes protective. And then the girl that I said was an awkward moment, they become a bit close, and the robot gets a little bit sort of jealous, should we say? And he's like, oh, but the way he talks, this was such a good movie. It really was. It was one of those top great films, which I've no idea whether they don't go to other cinemas, because I know it wasn't on the Isle of Wight, but
yeah,
if this was, all right, some people don't like Ricky Gervais, and although it is that sort of style, there's enough in it to, I don't know, it's just fun. And the robot is, I don't even know who plays the robot, to be fair, but he's absolutely brilliant. And it's, even though there's no expressions on the face, there sort of is.
Yeah.
And I've got a little, the bully bloke was really, really quite and his family were really, really nasty. And being a bully, he's obviously, the guy, the inventor, he's like, I can't do nothing, because he's scared of him and pushes him about. But then he invents something at the end, so there's a bit of redemption there at the end, which is really nice. But yeah, it's a great film. Loved it, absolutely.
Okay, so Shaun, from what you said, in the last couple of weeks, I'm looking at our history of films that we have reviewed. And in the sort of subcategory of films that Shaun has found that are not showing very very many places, We have All My Friends Hate Me, Good Luck to You, Leo Grand, and now Brian and Charles. All British, all tiny, all with a very, very tiny cinema, and all of them have been good. So
they have been, yeah, terrific. They have been. You know, I mean, this was just. Oh, do you think because of my, you know, like the stupidness of movies, how could you have like a big washing machine? You know, sort of, there's one, but then, I've got a washing machine for my tummy, you know, and but it just works, you know. I thought, I'm not gonna like this, but it was just so funny, and the relationship between them was really, really. Oh, it was just, you know, they really, really liked each other, and when he gets sort of yeah. So even though there's no expressions on the robot, there is, or you feel there is, you know. So yeah, terrific, really different, really unusual. Reminds me a bit, as I say, I think it takes a little bit from Frankenstein, you know, the modern Prometheus thing, and with the electrical start, and the cabbages, you know, it's like, you stay here, I'll bring you some cabbages, you know. Can I have a crinkly one, or can I have a, you know, what? Anyway, yeah, terrific movie. Just trying to think, probably using our categories, it's a really, really strong 4-star movie. This really, really strong 4 movie. Really enjoyed it.
Really strong 4-star movie. So 4 stars for Brian and Charles. Now, because with this, I could say that it would either be so silly that it would drive you around the bend, Shaun, or it could be one that you actually quite liked. So
exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. I figured that it's a kind of film that I don't think it would be in the middle. You either hate it or you'll be like, "Oh, this is actually really good." Right. So if you can find it, a cinema, you can track down Brian and Charles. Find it. Otherwise, tell us what streaming service is going to end up on, because I never know which streaming service these things are going to end up on.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you know, like all the different film companies and producers come up at the start. So it was Film 4, BFI. So I should imagine you're going to get it on Film 4 and, you know, amongst other places. So yeah.
All right, cool, good stuff. Oh yeah, it might be on all 4. Anyway, so going forward now, let's go on to Apple TV Plus, and we'll go back to Sharon and my our aim and our campaign to watch everything on Apple TV Plus before it is yanked from us in 5 months' time, when we can no longer be bothered, when we cannot be bothered to pay for it because we have our 5 months free and we're using the 5 months on nothing else. And so you watched CODA, which made me go, well, I guess I should watch CODA, because this was the film. This is the current reigning Best Picture Award winner. And so, Sharon, do you want to tell us what CODA is about?
Yes, I had forgotten that fact, actually, until after I had watched it, because I thought, what a good film. But yes, the film is a CODA. It stands for Child of Deaf Adult.
Yep.
And so the CODA in this case is a young girl who has grown up as the only hearing member of her family. Both of her parents and her older brother are all completely deaf, and they rely upon signing when they work. But they all work together on a trawler boat in the north, sort of east of America, and they go out before school. She goes out on the boat and she helps them pull it in, and if ever the alarm goes off, or there's anything that she answers the radio for them. So she is basically the ears for the family.
Yeah.
But they run the boat themselves. But she has a secret that they aren't aware of, and that secret is that she loves to sing, because it's not something that's part of their world. Music is, they listen to music, but because they can feel the vibrations and they can feel the beat. So music is, but the sort of singing is just not part of their world. And so she basically joins a choir, and the choir master discovers that she has a voice and a talent, and that she should do something with her talent. And then you get this conflict between her responsibilities towards her family and what she feels is her responsibility for her family, rather than to them. But she feels like in some ways she has to be there because she is the ears.
Yeah.
And it's in a hearing world, to be without hearing, you are excluded and you are separate. So they are a unit entire to themselves. They are part of a community, but separate from it. So even though they know the fishermen, they know the women in the school, and they know but they are completely almost like disconnected from the community in which they live. So when she gets this opportunity to sing, there becomes this real conflict between where she feels she should be, i.e. looking after her family, even though she's a teenage girl, and that desire for her to pursue her own dreams.
Yeah. Yes, and I have to say, I watched this film, and you've said it already. I watched it, and I just thought, oh, that is a lovely little film. It's a lovely little film, and there were bits in it where I thought, oh, I hope they do this. I hope they, and like where they try and get you into the point of view of what it's like to, as you said, be a deaf person living in a world in a hearing world, and how isolating that can be. And there's one particular scene that they do that it links, because I think they've chosen something, the fact that she can sing. Like there's a bit at the beginning, right at the beginning, where she's singing on the boat, and she's singing quite loud, and it's the kind of scene where you have a family that you can imagine someone be, oh, shut up, oh, what's wrong with you, oh, who's killing a cat or something, and nobody says anything, and you realize, oh yeah, her family, her parents, and her brother are deaf, so they don't have a clue what she's doing. they actually just don't know. And there's a bit during a concert that they do something with the sound in the film that I was just kind of like, that's great. There were a couple of things in the film where I was like, I really want this to happen. I really want this to happen. But then the way they do it, you're like, yes, that works so much. I love the parents. Played by Troy Kotzer, who won the Oscar for his role, and Marlee Matlin. I think that they are brilliant. I think that the relationship is hilarious. I think that the way they parent just cracked me up. Cracked me up. I think that the parents are brilliant in it. And it also does this. I think it's a very difficult trick to pull off in a film, where it presents you with an obstacle, and you understand how big this obstacle is, and you understand how important it is for the characters, and why this is an obstacle, and why it's such a big thing of, do I stay at home or do I leave? But at the end of the film, when the way that it plays out, you actually go, oh, hang on a second, it's not as big as we thought. But at the same time, as it might not be as big as you thought, but they get across to you emotionally how much of a bind this is for the characters, and how much of a pain this is for the characters. And I thought that it did that very, 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 very well. While I'm not sure about Best Picture, I thought it was a great film. I thought the performances were brilliant. I thought that the central premise was really good, and I thought the idea of getting across to you how alienating it can be for a deaf person. I thought I walked away going, "Geez, I never thought about that before." But good Lord, that obviously being a hearing person and having heard stuff, I'm thinking that must be terrible. But they haven't known anything different, and they just get on with it. And I think that's I thought it was quite good. Anyway, Holly, what did you think?
I loved it, and I thought the cast was fantastic. A real delight. It was a proper, give you all the feels sort of film. Yeah. And there was definitely crying. I mean, I cried. So that's not really indicative of much, but I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Loved it, and I thought it really did deserve, the recognition it got. Given it is, I mean, it's the first of its. We've not had anything of its ilk before. Mm.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is a film that I will maybe put on the shelf with Little Miss Sunshine, but a little bit behind Little Miss Sunshine, because I think Little Miss Sunshine is pretty much a perfect film. I think, but the same way that it takes a family, it takes something that looks like it should be a tiny thing, but it actually shows you how important it is and what it means to these family members. I love Little Miss Sunshine, and I looked at CODA, and thought, yeah, put that on the shelf right behind it. Anyway, if I start talking, I'm going to start talking about all the bits that I wanted to happen in the film that did happen, and how some of the moments when they happened were a little bit magical. I don't feel that bad saying that we're a little bit magical. So, how many stars?
There were standout moments throughout. I thought it was really good, and the fact that it wasn't depicted as a perfect family, in that they didn't argue, they didn't have their disagreements, they didn't shout at each other. As families do, because I think we often see a depiction of families on film where a happy family has to be one that doesn't disagree with each other. Yeah. Or whereas you can still fight, you can bicker, you can get cross, you can get fed up, you can say, you know what, I need a day off from you lot, and still be a loving, happy family. So I thought, to me, it looked like it was more of a realistic depiction of family life than lots of what we see as happy families on screen. So I really rated it.
I don't think I cannot stress how much I love the parents. They were almost like teenagers. I mean, that's hilarious. Oh, all right. Sorry. Okay. Before. Okay. How many stars would you guys give it before I go too far?
I know, Sharon, you first.
Well, I'm torn about this one. I think it's easily a 4, but is it tipping over into a 5? Because in some ways I can't find any flaws in it, as in bits that really wound me up. So I think on the way I've sort of determined how I rate films, I think this is a 5-star film, because I can't find anything to take anything. Normally I start with the perfect score, then I deduct points for things I don't like, and I don't think I can delete anything from this film. So I would give it a 5.
I don't think you've ever given. I think you've perhaps only given one 5-star before.
Yeah, it's rare. It's a rare beast.
Yeah, rare beast indeed. Wow.
Holly?
I'm going 5 as well.
Wow.
Okay, cool. And I would give it a 4. I would give it a 4 because there's bits of it that I do feel are a bit formulaic. I mean, it's brilliant and it is charming, but there's bits of it that I think are a bit formulaic. It almost kind of follows the script of a sports movie, and it kind of follows the script of a sports movie. But I think it gets away with.
I should have to try and find that then, and then see what I think, because I mean that's highly recommended.
Yeah.
Apple TV Plus, Shaun. I think we have CODA. I really liked it. I thought it was a really, really good film. So I will give CODA a 4. And now we go on to, let's see, where should we go? Blah, 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 blah. Let's go to How to Please a Woman. Now, How to Please a Woman, which is a film that is almost kind of like a dual. There must be something in the water. You know how you have films that come along that are similar. And we had Good Luck to You, Leo Grand, a couple of weeks ago. Now we have How to Please a Woman, which are, on the surface of it, about older ladies, shall we say, who are rediscovering themselves sexually. Sharon, would that be accurate? What is this about?
Yes, I think I haven't seen the Leo Grande one, but yes, I think it's of that ilk. It's of that type. Over the last few years, we've seen a few more films about women, merely for women, and so I think this is in that school, but it is set in Australia, so it gives a little bit of a twist. And it's got Sally Phillips, who is an Englishwoman who's married to Australian, been living in Australia for a long time. And as is sort of like we've become to expect from these films, she wants to be happily married, but there's something that's just not quite right in her marriage. Her husband basically doesn't fancy her anymore, and she is finding that her relationship is just flatline. And so she has spent a lot of time at work, and she basically has become like the office, not the office drudge, but she has become part of the furniture, where they expect a lot of her, but she has no recognition.
Yeah.
And then basically in an office reshuffle, she gets made redundant. And they say in an office reshuffle, you know, how many other people have been made redundant? And it's like, well, basically it's just you. So she feels undervalued in her life, and she feels undervalued in her job. And then, but part of the job that she does is they evaluate businesses and they determine whether they are viable or not. And she goes to this one business, which is a moving firm, and the people she worked with before said it's not a viable company, but she believes there's something in it. And this then coincides with all her friends have noticed that she's feeling a bit low, and so they basically employ a stripper to go around to her house. And he is a stripper who offers benefits. And she says basically, you know, I'll do anything you want. And he like gives her like a wink, you know, anything you want. And she goes, well, would you clean my house? That's what I really want, would be a man to like do the cleaning. And so he takes his shirt off, and he basically ineptly sort of cleans the house. And it basically gives her an idea that could we provide, the idea to start off with is like, we will provide men, this removal company that she was going to shut down, and say that could you learn how to clean and go to women's houses and like clean their house for them. And then the first time the guy who was a stripper, he goes to the house, they assume that he isn't just a cleaner, that he is
a cleaner with benefits,
a personal service, as it were. And so he does, and then she's like, no, this is not what we're doing. And then it's like the more women contact her saying, no, that's what I want. Yeah, he can clean, but I also want, the extra on the side. So yes, that and so the business builds up in that by reputation. She starts this very successful business of providing cleaning services and also sexual services for her clients. And if what they want, it all depends on what they want.
All right, cool. So far, I would say almost kind of like, small British industry film, Calendar Girls, Full Monty kind of thing. So, what did you think of it?
It definitely has that vibe about it. Yeah, again, I watched it because I noticed we had reviewed the sort of whole Leo Grand film, and part of me is uncomfortable, basically because I'm uncomfortable with the whole sex industry.
Yep.
And the idea in this film is that nearly every woman she meets, young, old, in the all her mates at swimming, some of the ladies at work, they're all like, yeah, let's go pay for a man to
do stuff.
Yeah. And they're all like fine with it. They were like, yeah, it's like empowering. This is what I want, and this is what I'm going to have. And I'm just always slightly uncomfortable, thinking I can't imagine if I said to my friends, you know what, I've got this idea for a business, and all my friends went, yeah, let's pay for sex. What a great idea. I can't imagine my friends.
The world's turning.
Yeah, I was just sitting in my office and looking around the room. I'm thinking, I don't know that I'd make a lot of money doing that. The cleaning, I could see, but I'm not too sure that they're all desperate, to be sexually liberated in when they have to pay for it as well.
It is Australian. It is Australian.
Yeah. So I thought it was a fun film. I thought, they have it had some levels to it. It was quite funny in places, quite excruciating in others, where there's one scene that I was like, well, don't look. But on the whole, I thought it was a fun film, but not for me with some reservations. So I'll give it a good 3, but I probably wouldn't score it higher than that.
All right, cool. So 3 stars for How to Please a Woman. And this makes me think another thing that I really like about CODA. It's one of the few times that you see depicted on screen a couple who are married at the beginning of the film. They're into their marriage, they have kids and everything like that, and they're actually happy. The trope is always like, if people have been married on screen for longer than 5 years, it's gonna end. They're not gonna be married by the end of the film.
In some ways I'm like rooting for them, thinking, come on, I'm sure you could sort of bring this level of enthusiasm to your marriage. And in this film she tries, but then you do get introduced to another silver fox, and it's a bit like, I can see where this is going.
I see what's happening here. Right. All right, cool.
Yeah,
so
the world turns. The world turns, doesn't it? Really, the world turns now. Older ladies with younger men, whereas like maybe 10, 20 years ago, it would have been like, what the hell's going on? Yeah, what was going on? But as you get older, I can understand the reasons as a man. anyway, yeah.
Moving swiftly on to something that doesn't touch any of that thing. We're going back to the world of Marvel. We're going back to the MCU, and this is Shaun. You were talking about all the Marvel different TV shows and stuff that you have to catch up with. This is one that I don't think you have to watch much else to catch up with, and I think is totally 100% worth your time. And this is Miss Marvel, which finished yesterday. As we record this. They released the final episode yesterday, and the whole idea behind this is Miss Marvel in the comics is the first Pakistani American superhero that Marvel ever had. So obviously you have this whole thing about representation. You have the fact that a lot of the superheroes for ages were white men, and they started bringing in white women, and they were like, hey, how about then there were black people and all. But there's still areas that were not quite represented, and even when they were represented, they were a bit ham-fisted, a bit like when you had Shang-Chi. When he came in there, you had the whole Fu Manchu thing, and but this was created by a Pakistani American woman, and it's about a girl called Kamala Khan, who lives in Jersey City. She's a teenager, and she is a massive Avengers fan. So in her world, she loves the Avengers the way some people love Justin Bieber, and she's particularly a fan of Carol Danvers, as in Captain Marvel. played by Brie Larson, she's particularly a fan of, and she's like, oh my god, and she knows all this stuff, and she wants to go to Avenger Con, which is essentially like Comic Con but for Avengers and people who are a fan of the Avengers, and you go there, and at Comic Con they have people dressed up in cosplay as the Hulk and Ant-Man, and there's a big massive thing with they're an Infinity Gauntlet, and so essentially it's kind of like going to a real life Comic Con, but only in this world the Avengers exist. And she shortly before she goes along to this thing, she receives a box of family heirlooms from Pakistan, from her grandmother in Pakistan, and she has this bangle that she puts on her wrist, and she's like, oh, what is this? And it's like something in your family. And it turns out that bangle does something and unlocks something in her, and she has powers. So she has powers, and you go into this whole thing, and then Marvel origin story and all that. However, this is not just your average Marvel origin story, because this is one. My headline is, this is the best thing Marvel have done in ages. This TV show is the best thing Marvel have done in ages. I mean, the fact that before the show was released, there was a whole bunch of talk about the makers talking about how it looked like they were going to change her powers, because in the comic her powers are kind of like Mr. Fantastic. Look, my hand is now this size. Now my hand is massive, and I'm stretchy, and I'm bendy. And they looked like they were changing the origin of her powers in the TV show. And there was a big uproar, people going, "How dare you change it? We love Kamala Khan the way she is." And there was all this talk about how they were going to make sure that the powers were linked with her heritage and where she came from. And it sounded like, before a Bond film, when the people who were making the Bond film convince you and tell you that, oh yeah, no, don't worry, this time the Bond girls actually have agency, and the Bond girls are really blah blah blah, and the Bond girls, and you watch the film, and the Bond girl arc is meet James Bond, sleep with James Bond, get killed. And you're like, what are we talking about? But this time, all the stuff that they were saying beforehand, it totally goes in. I mean, the family unit, the way everything links with the family, the way she gets her costume, dang near made me cry. The way she gets her name makes me cry. And this is a Marvel show that is not that bothered about the bad guy. It is not that bothered about, oh, we've got to get a bad guy and I've got to go on an adventure. It's bothered about this young Pakistani American girl figuring out who she is from her heritage and this is one of the first times when you actually have the superhero heritage not coming from the United States, but coming from, there's a whole scene where they go to Pakistan. There's a whole bit where Marvel go into the fact that Pakistan and India used to be one country, but were partitioned by the British, and the pain and the hurt that caused. And I was just kind of watching this going, I cannot believe Marvel are doing this. I can't believe that they're going there, that they're going into history. There is one particular scene, one of the episodes ends with this massive scene at a train station that you just kind of like, whoa. And I loved this show, if you cannot already tell. I love this.
Is it a series? Is it a series, Tosin?
It's a series, 6 episodes.
It's a series.
6 episodes on Disney Plus. Right. And I thought it was. I think it's the best thing Marvel have done in ages. I think everything. So yeah, I know Shaun, for instance, you always complain about how people get their outfits, and it's kind of like, wait, how did they get the outfit? How did they figure out to make something like high tech? And in this, the way they get the outfit, the way it links to who she is, and the way it links to the culture, and the fact that it's this thing about representation, and the scenes of people outside a mosque, because not only is she a brown Pakistani girl in Jersey City, she's also a Muslim, so it's the first Muslim superhero as well. And the scenes of people outside a work or mosque shouting and going, yeah, we got our own superhero, and what it means for these people to actually have a brown superhero. I just thought this show was so light-hearted, kind-hearted, brilliant. There's some shonky CGI, but I will allow it. I'll just look over the shonky CGI. I just sort of say that the cast, brilliant. The family, brilliant. The lead actress, Iman Vellani, brilliant. And I just thought, I thought that Marvel did brilliantly with this show. So I would give this, I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I'm not going to give it a 5. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Okay, and I think we just about have enough time. We might have to go off and come back on. We just about have enough time to give Shaun feedback on what we thought about Greyhound. Something else that Sharon and I watched on Apple TV Plus. So Shaun is already, you can go back and you can look at Shaun's review of Greyhound. It's World War II, it's Tom Hanks, he's on a ship, and they're trying to get a convoy across the Atlantic from the US to the UK to help with the war effort. And it's about them versus German U-boats that are trying to sink them. And that's it. Shaun, what did you think?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was in some ways quite simple.
Yes.
A simple storyline.
Yes.
Because I thought there's no because there's sort of films like we've seen films in the past, like Cruel Sea, Grey Lady Down. There's all sorts of films about sort of submarine warfare versus the Nazis and the German U-boats. And I thought this was basically, quite a straightforward good guy versus bad guys. The good guys are in the boats trying to get across the Atlantic. The bad guys are in the U-boats. We don't really know anything about them. They were just these disembodied voices. So as a straightforward story, I thought, yes, it had a little bit of tension in it, a bit of, but it was a straightforward story. There was not awful lot of sort of depth or to it, but no, sort of for what it was, enjoyable. Yeah, and liked it. I had one of my uncles, as I've got many uncles who are in the army. At that time, I did have an uncle who was a merchant navyman who joined up at the age of 16 because he wasn't old enough to go into the regular navy, so he didn't want to wait. So at 1939, he joined the merchant navy at the age of 16 and was in the Battle of the North Atlantic in the convoys. He was torpedoed twice, but survived the war and went on to spend the rest of his working life as a merchant seaman. So that was part of my family history that was interesting. So I saw that, I was thinking, I know this story. So I enjoyed it. It wasn't anything. I don't think we learned anything new from it, but it was enjoyable for all that. So I'll give it a 3.
Now, Sharon, when you talk about it being simple, I agree with you. It's kind of like, it isn't anything more than sort of like a cat and mouse game between a ship and a U-boat. And I think that for people who are in, like Shaun, I know that you quite like this. You quite like this.
I loved it. I thought it was a terrific film. I thought, as Navy Seas goes, I'd put it well up there with the Cruel Sea and in which we serve, and it's a top list. I don't see what's not to like about it myself.
This is the thing. I think that because Shaun, you're into your World War II stuff, and you're into your World War II minutiae. So you're the kind of person who will watch a World War II film and go, wrong uniform, wrong belt. When they didn't have those boots at that time.
I think what it is in that, with like when they run out of depth charges and stuff like that, and they have to use the secondary armaments and all that sort of stuff. So for technical detail, it was spot on. I couldn't fault it on that. Even the aircraft, when the aircraft comes home and says, "Okay, we'll take over now. Thanks very much, Brown." Yeah, and for me, that's what made it. That's what made it better.
And Shaun, that's the thing. That is where I think the film excels. And I think if you're a World War II buff and you like your detail, this film luxuriates in the detail. And that's why, even though it's a simple story, a lot of the running time is spent on the detail of how you fight a U-boat. A lot of the running time, there's a lot of Tom Hanks stood on a deck with binoculars looking at something, running to the other side looking at binoculars, and like a whole bunch of real technical speed of like 45 degrees north. It's like, oh, we're going to torpedo something in the water, and there's a Pillsburger. This is Pillsburger. What's a Pillsburger? And like there's all this technical detail. It was written by Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks is a well-known World War II buff. He's a well-known World War II. That's why, his Band of Brothers, The Pacific. He's been involved in all these things that try to tell you about World War II. And you can see the level of detail and the level of nerdery about World War II that has gone into making this film. And how much you enjoy this film depends on how much you enjoy the nerdery and you like the specific detail. Like, because it's almost kind of like a play-by-play thing of how you would fight a U-boat with what was it? Was it a destroyer?
Destroyers. Destroyers were made especially to fight U-boats.
It's like a play-by-play book of how you fight this, and the psychological things that the Germans start doing, say, "Oh, we're gonna get you," and they're going, "Okay, cool. We got to send." Even the bit where they go, "We need to send a message back to the home base to let us know what can we send. Well, shall we send this message? No, too long. We should let them know. They'll figure it out. How we send this? Yes, this. The other people get exactly what we." And it's just the level of detail that, even though I am not a World War II buff and I'm not into that stuff and into that kind of detail, I appreciate it because I was like, oh, I see what they're doing here. And you don't see this that often. So it's not like a bombast. It's not like the action version of this kind of stuff. It's not quite Hunt for Red October. It's not like it's not like a pulp. No, this is a serious aficionados. This is how you do this. This is how they probably did it. And this is how
by the numbers, as they say in the military. We're going to do this by the numbers. Yeah.
We're going to do it by the numbers. We're going to start off here, and it keeps telling you how far away it is until they get onto the bit where they have air cover. And I think it explained a thing that I never knew existed. Like, they had to have this convoy, they had to go across the Atlantic, where there's a large swathe of place where they're not really protected.
Yeah, they come, but by air power. I mean,
Yeah.
there wasn't really many aircraft that could,
That could traverse the Atlantic at that time.
Anti-submarine warfare. Yeah.
Yeah. So I for that I appreciated it. I thought it was good. I think I would probably give it, and I would agree with Shaun. I'll give it a 3 for general populace, but I'll give it a 4 if you like your World War II stuff, because I really appreciated that they didn't try and Hollywood the thing up. I really appreciated that it was them going through, this is what it was actually like, and after about 10, 15 minutes of the film, you get that that's what they're doing. Although Elizabeth Shue is in this film, but if you blink, you will miss her, and I do not understand what the hell she's doing in this film. That reeked of a whole storyline that they had cut from the film.
They've cut out,
and I'm thinking it must have been a contractual thing that they said that she had in a contract that said, you cannot totally cut me out of this film. You must say that I'm in this film, so I must get the credit. So they leave 2 scenes where she says about 5 lines, and I'm like, it's Elizabeth Shue, for goodness sake. You don't put Elizabeth Shue in your film for 5 lines. What the heck is going on here? So I think it might have been stronger if they just left everything at sea. Forget about that scene with her in the hotel with Tom Hanks.
Yeah. I mean, that was pretty. I don't know what that was in there for.
I don't know what that was doing there. I don't know what that was doing there.
To explain the slippers. That was all it was there for, to explain the slippers.
Yeah, I'm thinking, because unless this guy was actually a real person, unless the character that Tom Hanks plays is actually a real person, why do you need the slippers? It doesn't make it doesn't add anything to the. Sorry, that for me was just like a mystery. I was like, the film finished, I was like, why was Elizabeth Shue in this film again? I hope she got paid well. Whatever happened. All right, cool. So now, Greyhound aside, final thing. Who do you think won this week? Netflix or cinema?
I think Netflix.
Yeah.
I think Netflix won.
The big 5s did it, yeah. The 2 5s and the 4, I think.
Yeah.
Even in the face of the 1.
You see,
Yeah,
now,
It's an average, but then I suppose if we're averaging them, I mean,
it's an average. We're doing it on an average.
Cinema, we got what, a 4 and
a 4 and a 3.
A 4 and a 3, so that's 7. And we reviewed how many?
We reviewed. I'm not counting Greyhound because we've already reviewed that before. So we reviewed 4 things on streaming services. So Aftermath, CODA, How to Please a Woman, Miss Marvel.
Oh, it could be tighter than I think.
I think it's streaming.
Okay, so Sharon, you're sticking with streaming.
Yeah.
Holly, you're sticking with streaming.
Yeah, I will stick with streaming.
Shaun, you stick with streaming.
Yeah.
The winner of this week of Netflix vs. Cinema is Cinema.
Wow.
That's what Aftermath has done.
Aftermath, the savior of cinema. Aftermath, the savior of cinema. because the thing is, I thought that this was going to be, as I said, a total Netflix week. But then when you gave the Aftermath a 1, I was like, ooh, this could get interesting. And that one was just so hard to fight back from. And Netflix and Friends did. They tried. They fought hard. We had 2 5s, a 4, a 3, another 4. But still, Aftermath was just there holding everybody down like an albatross around their necks.
I'm trying to think if there was any way I could have lifted the score up from a 1.
I like Cinema to win.
Yeah, by not watching it.
Cinema, absolutely. For me, Cinema was great. I mean, I'm pleased with that result.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, is there anything that I could possibly?
I think we're all Cinema.
Don't worry about it, Ollie.
Let
Cinema win.
I'm okay with it. I was just.
Might have given it a 2 stars if you'd fast forwarded it through, and then it would have been half the time.
I think even then it probably wouldn't have quite made a 2.
No.
Okay, cool. So
that would have been unfair on the remote control as well. See, I'm going to. If we're not going to include this, but I have to fill you in on what actually happened because it's ridiculous.
Okay, cool. So anybody listening to this, just so you know, we're about to get spoilers for a film that you're never going to watch. Go.
So, they've moved into the house. You have weird things going on with the temperature controls changing, and the dog's a bit suspicious. And then they she thinks somebody's broken into the house. Then it turns out that there's been this advert put out saying white supremacists come here, and then the black police officer thinks that maybe they are white supremacists and they're just really stupid ones, but he's not sure. So everyone says, oh no, you're being silly. And then the husband nearly dies, and it turns out he's been poisoned, and they think it might have been her. And the dog is poisoned. So the dog dies. The dog is lovely.
Oh, no.
Very sad. I was very upset about the dog. That's the only bit that I had any real feeling for. Her sister disappears and then turns up dead in their marital bed. Nobody seems to be that fussed about it.
I hate it when that happens.
Okay.
I hate it when that happens.
Holly, look, I know that misery loves company, but are you about to drag us into your misery by telling us the entire film?
I'm giving you the last two details, which will explain the entirety of it and not. It turns out that weird fake adverts have been put in the newspaper for them by the brother-in-law of the dead former homeowner, the brother of the former homeowner's sister, who's got himself into debt and wants to buy the house back because he'd bought because it was the only money he was going to inherit, and he'd also put an advert up that was a sort of, I have a rape fantasy thing. So Ashley Greene nearly gets raped. So that's one bit, except that's not all of it. Yeah.
Okay.
You've got to hit the best bit because it makes no sense. The couple who were dead, he'd apparently killed her because he'd had loads of affairs and then she had an affair, but this didn't seem like him. Well, it turns out this is true, but that she had built the house and she had built a sort of secret room upstairs where she had kept a man who didn't seem to be able to speak with very long hair locked up there. And he is the one who had killed the dog and the sister and then tried to kill her. And this was all, and had actually killed the previous homeowners because he was so upset that she wasn't actually going to be her husband. I'm not sure if he was mentally infirm or what, he couldn't speak.
My head hurts.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Holly, I'm going to go back to my previous comment and pick one story. Pick one story and tell that story. Don't go the whole thing. But anyway,
it doesn't even need to be told well. Just only
just pick
badly.
one. Just pick one. Okay.
One mediocre story is good.
Yes. So until next week, when we will give you our feedback on The Boys season 3. I promise I will finish watching it by then, Shaun, with all of its gore and weird sexual stuff. Until then, it is a goodbye from me.
Goodbye for me.
Goodbye from me.
Bye for me.
Thank you very much for joining us. Bye.